Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Luke Walsh Football Podcast. Yes, I'm not Luke. I'm his able assistant. I've been promoted this evening to first team manager, and Luke has very kindly drafted Robin as an assistant for me this evening to talk all things National League on game week number 41. So first things first, hello, Rob. Thank you very much. Late call up. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, glad to be here. Good to see you. We thought we'd see each other, 9 days ago, didn't we? And you very kindly offered to pick me up from the station for the Wealdstone Shots game. And then your daughter's demands took priority, didn't they? But it's okay. It was only a 500-yard walk. So I was being a bit of a diva anyway, I think.
No, apologies for that. Yeah, my youngest daughter, Connie, had football training and she also wanted to come and watch Wealdstone. So I ended up not actually getting into the ground till just after kickoff with her. So I'm not going to discourage her coming to watch any sort of football. So I thought it was best to do both. So yeah, apologies for that. But yeah, the walk to the Vale isn't too drastic from Ruislip Station. So yeah, apologies we didn't catch up at that point, Rob. But we can certainly talk about the Shots fortunes over the last few weeks and going forward onto Saturday in good time. And we've got 9 games to predict. There is FA Trophy action this weekend in the National League, which Aldershot, Woking and Rochdale from the National League are involved with Spennymoor from the National League North. But yeah, not many games in midweek, Rob, was there? There was 3. Aldershot played Fylde, Wealdstone played Boston and Woking played Rochdale. And interestingly, what's happened now is everyone's caught up. Most teams have now played 40 games. I think Rochdale and Sutton are the only 2 now that haven't played 40 games. So we're into the last month of the season. You know, it's 6 games to go, 6 cup finals for a lot of teams. So,
yeah,
I mean, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Rob, in terms of the next 6 weeks and how it may pan out?
I think it's really interestingly poised, isn't it? I mean, barring a drastic change in form for any of the top 3, Barnet should, and they'll hate it. They'll be really irritated at the minute by everybody saying it's won, but it's done. It's just a matter of when. Their attitude will remain right until it's done. Forest Green and York should keep what they've got in their possession, which is straight through to the semi-final, if you like, of the playoffs. There's a fair bit of jostling to go on still with those teams chasing the maybe the 6th and 7th playoff places. And down the bottom, well, literally, I mean, it's just crazy. It's the silly season, isn't it? It's crazy. And it's really weird because I know we'll get onto it, but obviously the big game on Tuesday night, as far as you're concerned and Boston was concerned, was Wealdstone against Boston. And even in my own mind, from the outside looking in, the psychology, the mentality changed, didn't it? Boston were on this run. We are so far out of it. We've got to get wins. We need to win, we need to win, we need to win. They win, 4 out of 5 or like 5 consecutive away prior to the blip at Hartlepool. And then they suddenly go to Wealdstone, having leapfrogged them. And all of a sudden, it enters your mind, well, they only need to go to Wealdstone and get a draw. And what did Wealdstone need? Paul, a win. And you got it. Tell us a bit about the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting listening to Graham Coughlan's post-match interview after their 2-1 win against Sutton on Saturday. They got a 92nd minute winner to get themselves out of that bottom 4. And I think 4 weeks ago, they were 12 points adrift. You know, and that Saturday afternoon, they found themselves 1 point above the relegation zone. It was really interesting what Graham Coughlin said, because he mentioned about not dropping standards and the fact that they're now out of it. You don't want to drop back into it. And that can be a really tough thing to deal with. And I have to admit, Wealdstone played York on Saturday. Didn't expect to get anything out of it. A lot of effort and endeavour. Wealdstone have had a lot of injuries and illness over the last couple of weeks, which has decimated the squad really. And Tuesday night we were on a hiding to nothing a little bit in terms of what team are we going to put out. You know, Boston are, as you quite rightly say, the informed team, and we've just been drubbed by York away, and there was a real threat there that this could really slide away. And yeah, having been at the game, I was commentating on the game, and it was a really interesting one because the atmosphere was better than I've ever seen at the Vale on a Tuesday night for a very long time. You know, and it was amazing that the Boston brought 230 odd fans. and they really added to it. The crowd added to it, and Wealdstone players went at it for minute one. And we had no idea as fans how long they were going to last in terms of energy and effort because of the illness. And we capitalised essentially on one mistake that Boston made. And we defended very well. Boston have got a very good centre forward called Hazel, scored 16 goals, a real handful. And, you could clearly see him and Jay Rowe and Green on the other side, the way that they tried to play. And Wealdstone really nullified them. And it was an entertaining game of football. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. As a neutral, I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. The atmosphere in the stands was great. And, Wealdstone prevailed. And, 1 week I sort of think, are they going down and they're going to stay up and then they're going to go down? And, you being an Aldershot fan, Rob, I guess a few weeks ago, you'd have thought the same. And you've had that consistent run of performances, which has given points, and has allowed them to get out of it. Whereas other teams, Dagenham, Wealdstone, Fylde, Boston, haven't been able to really get a grip of it and sort of get out and let others sort of sink. So the last 6 games to go, it's going to be a real bun fight down there. It's going to be very interesting because teams have got to play each other. There will be points dropped, and whoever's there on May the 5th, is going to be unlucky because it's one of those. It could be anyone from almost Solihull down.
The feeling at the moment is that it could well go to the wire, and in terms of certainly the last, surviving place or two. I've got a bit of insight on Fylde, having watched them on Tuesday, and I really want to compliment them. Sometimes that can sound a bit hollow when you've lost a game, but Fylde came to the EBB on Tuesday night knowing they needed to score goals and get wins. Probably for them, even coming and getting a draw probably would have been okay, but it wouldn't have really been good enough for what they need and where they are and the situation that they find themselves in. So what they did was they came with a back four and stuck Ethan Mitchell in front of that back four, very deep line. And they said to the other 5 players, I mean, this is my take on it. They said to them, go and create absolute chaos. You couldn't, in the first half an hour, you couldn't say Horton was playing here or Hugh Gill was playing here or Tyler Roberts was playing here. They were everywhere. And it was really difficult for Aldershot to know who to mark. It was chaotic. Dewhurst made a couple of good saves in the first half an hour. And Horton had a couple of sighters, a free kick over the bar and a shot on his left foot, just a little bit wide. And I was thinking, especially given the history between the two teams, you may or may not know, Fylde came to the EBB and scored 5 last year. Up at Mill Farm this year, they scored 5 against Aldershot. I think they thought, this is the game we need against a team that will come out and play and attack us and leave holes at the back. Well, Aldershot went and got themselves a really unlikely clean sheet on Tuesday. They stayed in the game at 0-0. And then you got moments, and those moments were capitalised on. A moment with James Henry towards the end of the first half and a moment with Josh Barrett off the bench in the second. But I think, and I put it to Tommy afterwards, and I think generally he concurred, that might have been, given the timing of it, given the opposition, given what's coming up on Saturday, given that Aldershot have played Saturday, Tuesday. I know lots of teams have, but they were on their 8th consecutive Saturday, Tuesday. And he had to freshen it up. He started with 5 finishers, as we call them these days. He finished with 5 starters. And they got the job done. But it was not, from the outside looking in, you might think, yeah, shots are in form. Father a bit hit and miss. That wasn't too much of a surprise. But if you watch the game play out, that scoreline against what we saw was a bit of a surprise on the night. And I think for Aldershot, they managed to give a bit of a rest to some of those who've put a lot of games, a lot of hours, a lot of minutes in, get some minutes into the legs of some of the others and get the points. And it took them to almost a, I mean, if we don't count the first month or two of the season in terms of the table, it took them to pretty much a season high of 12th. But Fylde, I can't predict. I'm struggling to say whether they will or won't be in it because On their day, Horton fires, and you're in trouble. Another day they don't, and they don't pick up points. So it's really difficult. Probably the only conclusive point I've got is that unless Dev pulls quite a few rabbits out of the hat, Maidenhead do not look like they're going to get out of it this time. They're still conceding goals, and up front they've got a couple of players on 10 goals, but not enough goals throughout the team, right?
No, I agree, and it looks like their time may be up for a little while. And I think the problem with someone like Maidenhead, unless they use investment of the sale of Kilman, then it might be a difficult one for them to come back to the National League in the next few years. But you never know. But I think the problem Fylde have is what Boston had some weeks ago, is they're going to have to rely on other results now, because they're 4 or 5 points behind those that are above them. It's not a case of 1 or 2 points. They're 1 or 2 games that essentially needing to swing for them to now get to go up. I mean, the midweek games are very much heavily towards the bottom end, where with Shotts and Fylde, Stones and Boston and Woking all playing, and Rochdale been looking at trying to get into that playoff or sort of consolidate that playoff position. So, an interesting midweek. I think it favoured the likes of Wealdstone, favoured the likes of Aldershot. They're going to be happy that they're safe now. It's a difficult one, because when you look at it, Rochdale only getting a draw, Woking. If we go back to the top end, Rob, they're the ones that are likely to stay in because they've got that game in hand. And it looks like Gateshead are the team that are probably going to slip out of it, because Southend, and I've got Paul Rowling, good evening. He said, good evening from Bratislava, an exciting end of the season for the Shrimpers. And I think that's a great thing to sort of discuss in terms of a few weeks ago. I think Luke and I would I think Southend could do it, and they're only 1 point behind now.
They are only 1 point behind, and as I recall, they got up a bit of a head of steam towards the end of last year, but it was a little bit too late. This time, they're well in a lot earlier, and only a point off. And more importantly, there's a chink of daylight there. There's a door ajar, isn't there? Altrincham have already slipped out of the playoffs. Gateshead are desperately trying to hold on to them, and Halifax are treading water right now. So there's possibilities, and a form team right now that picks up 10 points even out of the last 15 might just be enough, or 12 points out of 18, whatever, might just be enough to get in there. Rochdale, I think, will be okay. I think you have to credit Woking with the guts that they've got an ability somehow, and even if they're relying on late equalising goals from the penalty spot from Harry Beautyman at the moment a little bit, but they've got, under Neil Ardley, they've got a toughness about them. They're difficult to beat, and we'll talk more about Woking, I'm sure, in a bit. But that was a really good point for Woking, because I saw Rochdale up close and personal on Saturday, and yet everything came together for them on that day. They had a big boisterous crowd. They were able to bring their captain, Kyron Gordon, back. They were able to bring Devante Rodney back, who, by the way, what a player he has become. He has matured into. And they were excellent on the day. I think I doffed my cap to them. I think Tommy Widrington did. You always look at your own team and what they could have done better, but he said we've been beaten by the better side today. And they have been a bit inconsistent of late, but I think they will definitely get a playoff place. Perhaps one of Halifax or Gateshead, if they don't pick up their form, might well drop out. And if you're Southend right now, you seem to be hitting the right form at the right time. They've been in decent form for a while. They just probably haven't always won games. They've drawn quite a few, haven't they? They're very hard to beat, Southend.
Oh, hugely. And you got to give them a lot of credit, because they've built slowly after the last couple of seasons of turmoil. They've hung in there. They've stuck with the manager. They've not panicked with new ownership coming in and changing everything. Throwing the baby out of the bathwater. So I think when you start looking at the games, and we'll talk about those in a few moments, but Gateshead have got Dagenham. Dagenham have got something to play for still in terms of survival, whereas Sutton, the Southend are playing Sutton. Sutton are safe in that mid-table. There's little things now that these teams are going to want to sort of hold on to think, right, this is where we can get points. I think you're right. I think Rochdale are going to be okay because they've got to play on Saturday in the FA Trophy. Hopefully that won't be a distraction to any of the teams that are in it. But Rochdale are then going to have another 2 games in hand over the likes of Oldham and Halifax. So I think you're right. I think they'll probably be able to cope with the fact that they're going to play Saturday, Tuesday, with bringing back the quality that you've just mentioned as well. So an interesting last 6 games for those bottom 3, because even if you look at it, I don't know if you agree, Rob, but even Tamworth must be looking at this and thinking, we've got a real good outside chance if we just put a little bit of a run together. I think
they already are. I think Tamworth, aren't they? And they keep it going.
They haven't lost in the last 5, and you think they've got to be thinking, come on, we can tickle the bellies of Altrincham and Gateshead and try and get into that top 7. So. Although I agree that the top 3 are sorted, maybe the top 4 or 5, the rest is quite an interest, and that for me is one of the reasons I like, only one going up automatically, because it keeps the league alive, doesn't it, right until the end of the season. So there's all those teams still got lots to play for at the top and bottom. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Rob, but I certainly like it as a neutral.
Do you know what? Some people for a month or so now have been, and Christian James, who does obviously involved with Boston, and he's a stat man. He's an absolute stat man. So he's had a grid drawn up for over a month now on all the bottom 8 and all their fixtures were and everything. My brain can't quite cope with that, but I think with 6 games left, I don't mind looking at a team's fixtures. And if we just take Tamworth for a minute, because they are a real dangerous animal right now. One, because of the way they've been all season. They've not fallen away. It's an absolute free hit for them, week in, week out. And look at the games they've got left. Maidenhead, Braintree, Solihull. Forest Green away, admittedly, who haven't lost at home all season. And then home to Fylde. And on the last day of the season, away to Altrincham. It's unlikely, of course, that those 2 will both have a chance by that stage, but they could do. Tamworth are to be written off at your peril. I don't know if you want to look at 1 or 2 of the other teams' fixtures that have got left either end of the table. I don't mind. I can pull them up instantly, but
I think you're right with Tamworth. I mean, they're the team in form. Altrincham are the team that are bang out of form. Southend are sort of consistently inconsistent, and Gateshead just their form's dropped off a cliff. So, Tamworth and Southend are they're hunting, aren't they? And those that are getting hunted are sort of struggling to escape, if you like. So
if we look at the other hunters that we're talking about, Southend United. This is how their final 6 look. Excuse me. Away to Sutton, difficult, granted. Home to Solihull, home to Braintree, who may well be mathematically safe by then. Away to Ebbsfleet, home to Wealdstone. And the final game away, we talk about Tamworth playing away at Alty on the last day. Southend are away at Gateshead on the last day. That's another one that could come down to win or bust.
you got 2 fixtures that may have 4 teams going for 1 or 2 positions. So Wealdstone go to Southend in their last away game. I'm just hoping that Wealdstone are safe by them, because I don't fancy getting too much out of Southend away or Halifax at home the last 2 games. So yes, it's amazing. You could pick up any number of fixtures now, and there's very few that will be like a dead rubber. And I think in terms of those that love the National League, and we talk about this regularly on the pod with Luke and those guys that sort of tune in and leave messages and comments. It's a bonkers league, and it's fantastic because of that. It keeps everyone's interest right until the last minute, and it's great. And I think it's a good time to go on, Rob, with your interest with Aldershot. It's great that even though that's all happening, we've still got 3 National League teams in the FA Trophy, and you'll probably be able to wax lyrical about the fixture you got coming up on the weekend. And you're playing a small team that's just around the corner from you. Is that right? You're playing a team called Woking. So a big game for the Shots and a big game for those Woking fans as well.
It's massive, whichever way you look at it. First and foremost, it's a sellout. The exact number to be confirmed, but around about 7,100. I'm told that it didn't actually sell out when Aldershot played Manchester United in 2011 in the Carling Cup. I don't know why. That might have been a bit of a blip on the admin side, but it was close to full then. I think the last time it was bursting full was 20 odd years ago in a FA Cup tie against Brighton. So an absolute sellout. The opposition from just 15 miles down the road. And the irony really is the difference in history in the FA Trophy between Aldershot and Woking. Woking, of course, with a rich history, having been to the final twice. Having won it twice, I believe. And Aldershot having never made the final, having never been to Wembley. Old club, new club, old Wembley, new Wembley. They have, though, stood at the precipice a couple of times. Twice they've been in the semi-final, which used to be over 2 legs, and had what was perceived to be the easier draw in the semi-final. One time, I'm going back, I don't know, it'll be between 15 and 20 years now. Still got to do my research for the commentary on Saturday. But it was Hendersford home and away, and they managed to screw that one up with Nicky Bull getting sent off and Tim Seals going in goal in the second leg towards the end of that one. And then they drew Ebbsfleet, or they might have been Gravesend at the time, I can't remember, and lost that over 2 legs. Ironically, Dave Winfield, who went on to play a lot of games for Ebbsfleet, giving away 2 penalties in the first leg, and then they could only eke out a draw in the second. So they've been in the quarterfinals on 2 or 3 occasions in the last 20 years as well. So they found getting through over the final hurdle really, really difficult. This time round, they got a very stubborn Woking under Neil Ardley, haven't they? The one thing they've done, they've only lost 3 times under Ardley in 20 plus games now. Probably the favourite in this one is the draw after 90 minutes and the whole thing going to penalties. I would say, though, that Aldershot are coming into the game in slightly better form in terms of wins and league points, and they have that home advantage, which will be kind of 6,000 fans against just over 1,000. In fact, no, it might be slightly higher. It might be 1,300 or 1,400 Woking fans. It's going to be a great atmosphere. I really can't call it. I am not going to be so naive as to predict it. The shots are being buoyed a little bit tonight as well by the news that Josh Barrett, 17 goals in all competitions, has signed an extended contract, and that's really well deserved. And also, it leaves you feeling quite warm for the guy himself, because he's suffered quite a lot of abuse. A lot of people have had a go at him and always take the mickey, because he's a little bit oversized, if you like. But he's delivered on the pitch this season. He's answered those critics in the right way, and we love him at Aldershot, and he loves it there. I think in terms of the local derby aspect of it, that's an interesting one. As you may or may not know, and some of our viewers tonight may or may not know, I don't actually live in the area. I live in Cambridgeshire, which is a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But my family all come originally from Aldershot. So I perhaps don't feel the intensity as some do of that rivalry. I'm also in a bizarre situation personally, because as the BBC Surrey commentator for the home club in this, I will be doing the commentary, but I'll have an Aldershot and a Woking summariser alongside me, because it's my job to commentate professionally on Saturday, regardless of any internal feelings. So that's going to be quite a challenge, but one that I'm up for.
Well, yeah, I can imagine it's a bittersweet moment. I should imagine, if Aldershot do go on and win, and you can't be exuberant as you maybe want. Hopefully, you won't have to do it if they do get to the final, Rob, and you can be a fan in the stands like everyone else. But yeah, it's a really good tie, and you have to look at someone like Aldershot and Woking. If either team get to Wembley, that's a successful season for them. I think at the start you'd like to think Aldershot and Woking were both considered trying to get into that playoff picture. But, a visit to Wembley and maybe a win is going to be certainly something that they can hang their hat on for sure. And I'd love to be in that position as a Wheelstone fan, and many fans that are watching on here today with their teams would love to be in that position on Saturday. So probably game of the weekend, even if you include some of the National League fixtures, and it'd be interesting to see who does prevail. But just on Josh Barrett, I saw him play with Kings Lynn under Tommy Widrington in the National League South against Wealdstone, and what a talented kid that is. You know, I know he'd played at Coventry and played in the EFL, and you could certainly see that he's got that mercurial talent, hasn't he? In terms of let him go and do what he needs to do. Don't henpeck him into something that will stop him being what he is. And he is a bit round. He is a bit, probably a little bit heavier than he should be. And I think that adds to a little bit of his character, because he shouldn't probably play like he does with the way that he looks. And I'm pretty sure if he probably did have the right mindset, and that may be something that's held him back, that if he did drop a little bit of weight, he probably wouldn't be at this level. But, it's great to see him, the way that he does play. Certainly at the Vale the other night, him and James Henry in the second half they were the difference. They stepped it up and took Wealdstone to the cleaners. So I'm glad he's going to be in the National League for a little bit longer, unless, of course, he does improve so much more that someone from the EFL comes and takes him from your hands, Rob. But in terms of the other FA Trophy title, I don't know too much about Spennymoor from the National League North. We've got Rochdale in there. Yeah, Rochdale, you'd like to think are probably the favourites out of the four. A full-time team coming out of the EFL over the last year or so, and they seem to have taken it seriously enough to get to this point where some of the other bigger clubs, and I say that in terms of the size of the clubs in this league, have sort of drop away and change their squads up, etc. But Rochdale seems to have taken it seriously, so they're probably keen to be able to get their fans to Wembley.
I think so. I mean, listen, they, as a club, have had a difficult time over a long period, and they eventually, of course, lost their great point, Lee Davis. They eventually lost their league status, didn't they? And I think they've adjusted. They've adjusted pretty well over the last couple of seasons. I think in Jim McNulty, they've got a really impressive young manager. Yeah, for sure, they'll start as favourites in that tie. They're favourites overall for the competition as well, and that's just based, frankly, on their league position, isn't it? But I wouldn't write off Spennymoor for a couple of reasons. I think they've got a free hit in this game. They've gone to Sutton in the quarterfinals and beaten them. They've got a player on his day in Glenn Taylor who's been there, seen it, done it, and loves a goal. He got both goals against Sutton this time. He did when they played a few years ago as well. Their supporters will travel in good number. Nobody will expect them to win. And there is sometimes in football or in any sport, you play an opponent where it almost feels like a no-win situation. If you win, it's expected. If you lose, it's a disaster. And so Rochdale, I would say, really need to get their approach and their mentality right for the game. And then I think if they match Spennymoor for passion and effort and fight on the pitch, and probably have to earn the right a little bit to play on Saturday, I'm sure that they will prevail, because they can hit you and hurt you in many different ways, whether it's the experience of Henderson, whether it's the undoubted quality of Devante Rodney, whether it's Cairo Mitchell, who one way or another will have a point to prove because he's a little bit in and out at the moment. But I think he remains, doesn't he, their top scorer this season. So they've got the weapons to hurt you. I'd expect them to prevail, but I don't think it will be easy at all for them. You could argue that's the draw that the other teams would have wanted at home to Spennymoor. Personally, I wouldn't have minded Aldershot going away to Spennymoor, just from the point of view that it's the only ground that I've not been to, and I probably won't ever have any other reason to go there. And I mean, you can take the mickey out of this if you like, but Aldershot, since Wrexham went up, are the team that's been in the National League the longest, and for that reason, I haven't even been to a new ground this season. I'll tell a lie, I did. I went to Boston for the first time, but it's normally one or two new grounds a season now. And like all of us in football, we love to go to a new ground, don't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I certainly wouldn't predict anything other than a Rochdale win, but it might be a bit tighter than perhaps people think.
No, I think you're right. It's a very stereotypical David versus Goliath sort of scenario in that sense, in as much as where Rochdale are to Spennymoor. I mean, shots Woking, no one's going to need any motivation to win that game. And I think you're right. You've got to earn the right to show your quality and class. I think if Rochdale put that on the pitch from minute one, they probably will prevail. But I think what Spennymoor have got to be looking at is it's that one hit. There's no two legs, so they can win it on the day. Example, we also went to Grimsby in round 2 of the FA Cup and got a 90th minute winner by hanging on. Those sorts of things can happen, right? So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they get on as well. So you got your southern tie and your northern tie. So good luck to all those teams on Saturday.
And just one footnote, in case people are wondering, I looked into this in the week, or a friend or colleague of mine did, but there is no extra time in the semi-final. Straight to penalties after 90 minutes. Although in the final, for whoever gets there, the standard is for extra time to be played, unless the two teams pre-agree that they don't want extra time. But that's an interesting one. I think if they were given the choice in the majority of rounds, most teams would choose to go straight to penalties. They've got a league game following or whatever. Once you actually get to Wembley and play a final, I think the majority of people swing the other way a little bit, don't they? And think, do you know what? Let's try and see if we can win it. Win in open play, if you like, first, before we go to penalties. So the teams, and the teams that will get a rest this weekend, I haven't worked out who the other is. Boston.
It's going to be Boston and Oldham, and I can't remember who Rochdale had. Boston and Oldham definitely have a rest. I can't remember who the third one is. So
we'll come across it as we go through the fixtures.
But good luck to all those teams. Great to see, there's National League interest in it. There normally is, but you don't always have 3 teams because of how it's perceived by certain clubs. But it's a trip to Wembley on the horizon for one of those teams or 2 of those teams, and it'll be a great day out for whoever does get there. But I think the mindset will change at sort of around 85 minutes if it's going straight to penalty. So I wouldn't certainly want to be on that pitch if I had to take a penalty in the 5 or 10 minutes to go of the game. So, but what we can do now is maybe we go into looking at the predictions. We can talk about some of the clubs as we go along. There's a few comments here. I haven't purposely put them up because I can put them up as we talk about them. But we got some good numbers listening and watching tonight. So thank you very much for joining us. And hopefully, if you have any questions, please put them on to the chat and we can ping them up. But got our usual suspects who have said good evening. I've showed them earlier. But in terms of the fixtures, we've got 9 to look at. And what we can do is, if I we'll start with Fylde and York. And I've got
can we just one quick question? I don't know if you've got the graphic there or not, but I haven't quite kept up tabs with it. Obviously, I've pinch hitted for you a couple of times against Luke. I think Luke said, so the scores before we go into it, I think Luke's got a bit of a lead again, hasn't he?
Yeah, he had. I haven't purposely done this. I completely forgot. So apologies. Well remembered, Rob. Yeah, it's not looking good for me. I'll show it up on there. There you go. I'm 10 points behind, Rob. So if you could predict for me this evening, that would be great. And I'll predict for Luke. Then it may swing the other way.
No, he's giving me strict orders that I've got to predict to him. I think he desperately wants to hold on to that lead now, doesn't he? But I'll try and throw in 1 or 2 interesting predictions without actually completely kiboshing it for him.
No, that will be excellent if you could. No, listen, there's 9 games to predict in this week, and some interesting ones as well. From what I sort of looked at earlier, again, really difficult to predict. So what I'm able to do is I can share. I can't get Sofa score for some reason. My computer won't allow me. So I have got on here flash score, and as we go through it, we can go through we'll go through the league, and I've got the standings here. So the first one is Fylde versus York, and interestingly, Rob, we've got a comment here from Harry, and he said Fylde away for York on Saturday with 1,400 York fans making the trip. They're certainly they're going out in numbers, York, at the moment, and I think they anticipate that they're going to be a strong contender for that second position going up. And the York fans are certainly getting behind Adam Hinchelwood and his lads at this present time.
Yeah, they are, and they're loving it. And I think quite rightly, York City fans get a little bit annoyed when they hear, negative comments about how they've done this season. Now Barnet have pulled away, because they're absolutely delighted. Their side weren't sure of their safety in the National League going into the last couple of games of last season. And yes, they were well back then as well, but the money wasn't utilised as wisely as perhaps it might have been. And Hinchelwood's come in and done an amazing job, whether it's, you know, the way the team is cohesive together, whether it's their goal scoring exploits. You know, he's done much better defensively at York than he did at Worthing, where just occasionally, you know, teams would score too freely against them. And that's fantastic that they're taking 1,400 up to Fylde. And Fylde are obviously desperate for points right now. And I don't know whether they'll go with a similar game plan to what they did against Aldershot in the week. But certainly they created a bit of chaos. And I think that could be quite a high-scoring game. But if they do take on York in the way they took on Aldershot, I would back York to outscore them. So I said I'd go for one or two slightly left field predictions today, and we'll see how they work out. But this is one of them. I'm going to go Fylde 2, York 4.
Wow, that is high. That is high scoring.
That is high, isn't it? It might be my highest. We'll see. But what are you going for?
That I've got a Fylde 1, York 3. I've got a similar feeling to you, Rob, in terms of York, and at this present time they're going to score goals. You know, they've got some excellent firepower. They're high in confidence. They beat Wealdstone last week 3-0 at home. You know, I think Fylde, like you said, are very, very hard to predict, and they're going to feel sorry for themselves. You know, they didn't win in the week. They saw the results that Wealdstone got and Woking got, and I think it's going to be really tough for Fylde to dig themselves out of this problem now. So I've gone with a Fylde 1, York 3 results. So, and a few predictions have popped up there as well. Fylde 1-1 from Martin, 2-1 York, and 1-1 from Caroline in terms of what she sees there. So the next game we got is Altrincham versus Yeovil. Altrincham, I saw them a few weeks ago against Wealdstone. Their playing surface has let them down a little bit, I think, you know, in terms of the way that Altrincham do like to play. They're a team that are struggling that little bit at present, and they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth in hope of getting a playoff place. But 2 points out of the last 15 is certainly not something that you would expect from Altrincham at this stage of the season. And I don't think it will continue on Saturday in terms of them getting any more points. I think Yeovil will win 1-0. You know, there's a bit of turmoil down at Yeovil, isn't there, Rob? We don't know who's going to own the club. Don't know whether the owner who presently is there, Martin Hellier, is going to pull any funding. And you know, Stuart Robbins has gone in. It just seems a little bit bizarre again down at the Hewish Park. And they've had a great season, Yeovil, and they, as much as Mark Cooper and Martin Hellier get a bit of stick, you look at them. They've come up from the National League South, and they've got themselves midway. They're not going to go up. They're not going to go down, and they can now build on it. And I think they'll get a result on Saturday, and they'll beat Altrincham 1-0.
Okay. Well, interestingly, I'm going to go the other way on this one. I have been a little bit surprised by Altringham's kind of fall away of late. I think they've got a lot of quality. I think the manager's got a lot of quality. They did. I believe they didn't win any of the 3 games when Regan Linney was suspended, if I've got that right. And then they've lost a bit of momentum as he's come back. Excuse me, but I do think they've got one of the most exciting forward lines, despite having lost Chris Conclark last year. I think when Alex Newby and Regan Linney both play, I think that's a handful for any defence. I really do, especially the way they combine together as well. I think both of them are very, very classy forwards at this level. Yeovil are much harder to predict, aren't they? You know, just as everybody sort of said, oh, they flirted with the playoffs, and now they're sort of falling away. They've actually picked up form, haven't they? And I think they're 14th now, but after 3 losses, they've won their last 2. So they're dangerous, and I can see why you'll go in for them. But I think Alty will get back on track this weekend. I think they need to. I think I can almost kind of visualise them getting the first goal and having control of this game, and then with Yeovil perhaps pushing later on to try and get an equaliser. I think they'll score again. So I'm going to go 2-0 to Alty on this one.
Yeah, I think what's improved for Yeovil is being able to get some defensive cover, some more quality in the defence. I know Mark Cooper was struggling with centre backs recently, and they've never been prolific scorers in the league this season. I think that's another challenge for them, hence why they're not really pushing on to those playoffs. But having brought in a couple of lads recently in terms of the defence, Yeovil are going to look. They're going to be hard to beat, and I can sort of see where you're coming from with Altrincham. Could they pick them off because Yeovil have to go and chase the game? And yeah, again, not my probably favourite game of the game week, to be fair, Altrincham versus Yeovil when you look at some of the others. But a 2-0 Altrincham win for Rob and a 1-0 Yeovil win for me. So Luke will be pleased because at least it's a difference in terms of what we've predicted. So the next one up is Braintree nil. This is what I was going to say. Braintree versus Barnet. And I'll go straight in. I've gone for Braintree nil, Barnet 3. I just can't see Barnet losing. I can see Barnet scoring a few goals. There's not really much else to say about this. They're champions in waiting. They will, if you believe it or not, if York don't win at the weekend, they can win the league against Wealdstone at the Hive. So I'm personally backing York to win on the weekend. I don't want to go to the Hive and have to see Barnet win the league. But they're gonna. It's just a matter of time when they can sort of crown themselves as champions. And from a Wealdstone perspective and other teams down there, you're going to have to hope Barnet do a job on Braintree to help those that are struggling.
From a personal point of view, quite selfishly, I want it not to be too straightforward for Barnet because I think Aldershot go their second or third game from the end of the season, and it would be good to see it go a little bit closer to the wire. Braintree and Barnet. Yes, I'm going to predict a Barnet win. I think they'll get the job done. I think with one less goal scored, and they've had a lot of clean sheets of late, so it would be easy to predict that. But I like the forward line that Braintree have got right now. They've got something a little bit different, haven't they? You've got the youth and the legs and the sheer tenacity and enthusiasm of Kyrell Lisby. You've got his brother as well, and then of course you've got the more known quantities of his name's escaping me now, John Akindi. I think they'll rustle the goal up. I think there'll be a few wobbly moments for Barnet on Saturday, but they'll probably prevail. So I'm going to go Braintree 1, Barnet 2. Oh, just as Steph said, look.
Yeah, much closer to the one I thought you would predict. I mean, that's a brave shout because Barnet have let one goal in the last 5, and that's against Gateshead, who aren't any mugs. I know they're not playing brilliantly at the moment, but they're going to have to let a goal in at some point, I guess. So, it may be Saturday. So the next one we're looking at is Gateshead versus Dagenham and Redbridge. Now, Gateshead, as we know, hanging on with 60 points in that playoff position. They were 4th and 5th over the last few weeks, and their form has dropped off a cliff. And if you look at that form table, they're the only ones with a complete red line. And it's the injuries and everything, I think, is catching up with them now, Rob, in terms of the management changes constantly and the loans being recalled and players being sold. I think it's finally catching up with Gateshead, probably right at the wrong time for this season because they are actually allowed to play in the playoffs this year. They're not going to relish this game. They're playing a Dagenham and Redbridge team who aren't at the best. They haven't been the best all season. Again, there's been a bit of turmoil off the field down in East London, and Dagenham aren't going to be wanting to play them because the Gateshead aren't going to be wanting to play them because Dagenham have got to try and get something out of this game. So I've gone with a safe 2-2 draw. I think the Heat have always got that quality to score goals. I think Dagenham are going to have to go for it. It's a long journey, but I think they need something out of this Dagenham, and it will be a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, it's a fair shout. We're going to be closer in our predictions on this one. I'm going for a 1-1 draw, and here's my thinking. Gateshead are desperate to end their run of downward momentum. They've had 5 defeats on the trot. In fact, it's 6 actually. Your chart's showing 5, but I'm pretty sure they lost the one before that as well. They're desperate to end that run. Dagenham are desperate for whatever they can possibly get right now. And credit to them, they have picked up a couple of draws and a couple of wins lately, haven't they? And when we look at that survival race, we talk a lot about Reed for Wealdstone. We talk a lot about Horton for Fylde, and we question whether Maidenhead have got the goal scorers in them. But one that seems to go under the radar, and only for the fact that we're used to him doing it over the years, but Josh Rees for Dagenham has been there and done it, and he is continuing to find key goals for them. And I back him to do it again on Saturday. One thing we haven't mentioned predicting this game is, do you remember the score the other way around of this game?
A very unlikely scoreline. Was it 7-1? Is that what it was?
I can't remember if it was 1 or none. I think it was 1. Yeah, 7 for Dagenham, and really, for most clubs, a result like that would have spurred them on, would have kicked them on. It actually was the beginning of the downtrend, really, for Dagenham. They just didn't kick on after that. I think they possibly, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but they might be the team that's given away the most points from winning positions this season. They have led countless times in games, particularly at home, and not been able to hang on to them. And the amount of games they would have given to borrow just 1 or 2 of the goals from that 7-goal win against Gateshead just to get across the line, you know. I don't think either side can bear the thought of losing this week. That's why I also think it will be a draw, and I'm going for 1-1.
No, I think you're right. There's too much on it, and you know, I go back to what Graham Coughlan said after they beat Sutton on the weekend, on the build up to Wealdstone. He said, if you're not going to win, don't lose. Try and get out there with a point, and that's, I guess that's got to be the mentality here, because the teams Gateshead and Dagenhams of this world, they can only influence what they can do now. You know, they've been in a position of strength or weakness, and yeah, relying on others is not the one to do. They've got to worry about themselves, and I think you're right. You're having to get a point at least. Better point for probably Dagenham. It will be Gateshead. You know, with Southend breathing down their necks and Tamworth breathing down their necks, but yeah, Dagenham just need that sort of fillip of being out of the bottom 4 with a bit of a gap, because you know they're actually got the same number of points, and you know they're only out of it on goal difference. So you know, if it's a 7-1 bashing the other way, that's going to really hurt Dagenham. So they're not going to want to lose a game like that. So yeah, a very difficult one for both teams. Neither really in great form, and I think you're right. A draw will probably be the result there. The next one is Hartlepool versus Ebbsfleet. Now, as we know, Ebbsfleet have been relegated. Hartlepool probably can't go up, won't go down, have been on a wretched run of form. Again, they've had manager changes this year, and I think they probably just want the season to finish. But Ebbsfleet have been really spirited in the last few weeks, and Josh Wright has got them playing and trying to do what they can to sort of salvage a bit of pride, I guess, in terms of the season. And they lost in the week in the Kent County Cup, unfortunately, to Welling. So it's not going very well for Ebbsfleet in any sort of competition. But I've gone with the Hartlepool 3-1 win. That's purely because they're at home. They are the better team, and you know, Ebbsfleet have got to go some to try and get a win out of this.
Yeah, I find Hartlepool a difficult team to predict, really. Just when they come up with a result one way, they then flip and do the other. I think both teams are unbeaten. Both teams are unbeaten in the last 3 or 4 games. Hartlepool, I think it's 4 games. Maybe Ebbsfleet is 3, isn't it? Hartlepool have just had back-to-back wins, and an interesting question, if there's any out there watching, have Hartlepool won 3 games on the trot this season? Because I can't remember it, but I think they won't get a better chance to build on the last 2 victories. They will want to finish strong. You know, it's unfathomable for me that I look at that league table and see Aldershot even above Hartlepool now as well. But I think all credit to Josh Wright, all credit to Ebbsfleet. They're building for next season. It's probably a lot easier for them now to stop trying to play the kidology game with themselves, that they've still got a chance of staying up. You know, it's over, and they can look to put a run of games together. I think they'll be just as hard a team for Hartlepool to put away as anybody else outside the top 6 in the division. But I think, funnily enough, as it comes up there, I agree with Steph, and I'm going to go for a narrow Hartlepool win of 2-1.
Excellent. Yeah, I think most of the results there have gone with the Lee Davis went with a Paul's one, Ebbsfleet one, but Martin and Steph have both said Hartlepool. And this will bring this question on that Martin's put up here, Rob. How many teams could you still face a drop? Because as we talk about this, the next game is Maidenhead Tamworth. Now, I think if you look at the league, it's possibly Solihull down because there's 3-point gap to Solihull to Sutton. Sutton have got a game in hand, so they could move even further away. So realistically, Solihull are mathematically still involved, I would suggest, and it's probably from there down. But I probably Woking and Braintree. It's hard, isn't it? Because you don't know. Solihull aren't on a great run of form. Braintree are slightly better in terms of form. Woking hopefully won't get distracted by the FA Trophy. Wealdstone haven't done so bad in the last 5, and Dagenham are picking up. So I would suggest it's probably Solihull down. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd go slightly lower because I think in Solihull and Braintree's case on 48 points, I think they probably need a win or a win and a draw just to be almost, not mathematically, but you know what I mean? It would be different. I can't envisage anyone who gets 52 points is going to go down. So I think Solihull Moors are dropping like a stone, aren't they? Like Dagenham did, just a little bit ahead of them. Braintree, 3 wins in the last 5. There's no doubts for me for them getting another win and a draw at least. They may not get anything against Barnet on Saturday, but for me it's Woking down, and I don't seriously think Woking are going to be troubled because I think on 46 points, even with draws, they'll make their way to 50, 51, 52 points now. I haven't looked at their remaining fixtures. I know one of them is at home to Aldershot on Easter Monday. But yeah, points-wise, I'd say 48 at the moment with 6 games left should be enough. Woking, because of the points differential, you can't rule out of it, can you? So Woking, Wealdstone, Dagenham, Boston filed Maidenhead with 3 of those to survive and 3 of them to go down.
It's going to be topsy turvy because I think Maidenhead aren't going to be wanting to play Tamworth at the weekend, as we've alluded to with Tamworth, in as much as they're the team that are hunting down, and they're very effective at what they do. Haven't got any particular special players, any standout talents, and that's no disrespect to them. They are just a very, very workmanlike, tough, resilient team that when it's coming down to the metal of the season like it is now, they're proving their worth, and they have done fantastically well to come up from the National League North, not with a huge amount of investment, still part-time, and they are just utilising what they've got. And you haven't seen them play Wealdstone in the last couple of months twice. I can see them doing to Maidenhead what they did to Wealdstone. I think they're going to win 2-0.
Yeah, it's a fair shout. I can't honestly predict Maidenhead to get anything out of this game. I think you talk about it's all about the teamwork. It's all about the sum of the parts at Tamworth, but they do have an outstanding goalkeeper in Jazz Singh. And they have an outstanding number 9 in Dan Creaney at the other end as well, who plays the role superbly. And the fact that they kissed goodbye a month or so ago to Nathan Shakuna, who was absolute quality, a bulldozer down the wing there, and they've still kept up their form, is testimony to just how good they are collectively. I think Maidenhead at best will score a goal on Saturday, and I back Tamworth to get 2. And apologies, I can't remember what you said, but I can't change mine. It's Maidenhead 1, Tamworth 2.
Oh well, I said 2-0 to Tamworth, so we're in agreement that there's going to be a Tamworth win. But knowing what Maidenhead are like, it's the sort of game they'll go and win 3-0. It's but yeah, I think on this current form, and Maidenhead aren't picking out any particular result that they may have done last season, a stellar performance against a top 6 side that no one would predict, just to push them back up. And I think that's the worry for Maidenhead, is they're not able to get any of those sorts of results at this time. And it's looking like it's going to be a tough run-in for them in terms of the next 6 games. The next game to look at is Sutton versus Southend, and we've alluded to the Southend similar to Tamworth. I think Tamworth are difficult because they've got Maidenhead, have got something to play for. I think Sutton, I'm not suggesting they're on the beach right now, but they're safe in that mid-table, and it's been a season of rebuilding for them, changing their philosophy, bringing the youth, sort of the youthful players in after their EFL exit, and I think they'll be better prepared for next season, with what they've got, and they'll just try and do as best they can for the rest of the season. But I think Southend, because they've got more to play for, they'll win this 1-0.
Yeah, I'm finding this one of the more difficult predictions.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and I tell you what, I'm between a draw and a Southend win. I think Sutton, they'll play with a lot of pride. The form's not great. It's mixed, isn't it? For sure. To be fair, Southend's form is mixed as well. You look at those last 5 there, 3 wins, a draw and a defeat. It's not an easy place to go ever, Gander Green Lane. And I don't see Southend getting beaten. That's for sure. Will they have enough to win it? If you follow the current narrative that they're the ones on the way up and other teams above them are treading water, you would go with the Southend win, but I'm leaning towards the draw. I think Sutton have always got a goal in them, probably from Will Davies, the Gucci man. And Southend don't always, for all their good possession, they do an awful lot. They have an awful lot of the ball, but they don't almost always penetrate with it. So we're not in the habit of predicting goal scorers, but I can so see the names Will Davies and Gus Scott Morris on this one in a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. The 2 standout performers, I think, for both those teams. And it's not going to be a high-scoring game, whatever way the results go with that one, I don't suppose. The next one is Wealdstone versus Forest Green, and Martin just earlier in the pod just sent out a message, and he sort of said, what is the outlook for Wealdstone? And it depends what day of the week you ask in terms of that, Martin, because if you said to me 3-0 down against Eastleigh at home a couple of weeks ago, we were down, and then we go and win at Altrincham and we're going to stay up, and then we go and lose at York and we're definitely going down, and then we go and beat Boston, I think we're staying up. So it's a really difficult one to predict in terms of the outlook. I think with what Wealdstone have got to consider is what they've got on the run-in. We've got Easter weekend. We have Maidenhead at home on the Easter Monday and Boston away on the Good Friday. And I think if you're looking at that 50-point mark, you've got to try and think there's the 6 points if possible to get there. And then anything else they get out of, and it's a tough one. They've got Forest Green, Barnet away, Southend away, and Halifax at home. So outside of those, you've got 4 teams going for something at the top end. So they've got to be the bonus points. I think we've got to look at Boston at a Good Friday and Maidenhead on Easter Monday as the ones to sort of target. Saying that, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Wealdstone fan, I think we will win on Saturday against Forest Green. I've just got a gut feel. Forest Green are keeping their powder dry. Steve Cottrell has said he wants to go and win every game, and I completely get that, but they haven't got an awful lot to play for until the playoffs, and I think that's what they want to try and push to. So I've just got a gut feel, being at the Vale, that they will win, but I don't know much about Forest Green. They flirted with trying to sort of win the league, haven't they? And it's not really worked. And we got a late draw down at their place earlier in the season. So I'm going with a Wealdstone 2-1 win, especially if we kick down second half.
Yeah, it is a difficult one to predict. That's for sure. Forest Green, can you just scroll down? I see their form in the last 5 matches. Or scroll up, whichever way it is. Yeah.
So they've
It's
got
a mixed bag, isn't it? 2 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat. Now that defeat, I'm pretty sure,
was
and
AFC
this is what's affected me. This is what's affected me with the prediction, is that they lost 3-0 away at Fylde.
Yeah.
And this is what I call the silly season. And Wealdstone need points. They need results. Forest Green would probably just quite like them. And I think being where they are, they've kept their points total ticking over, haven't they? They've picked up 8 out of the last 15. That's going to be more than enough, that kind of return. But sometimes a team that's treading water, a team that doesn't have to win or need to win, going away to a team that's absolutely up against it right now, is a difficult place to go. Am I bold enough to predict Wealdstone to win? I could be, but I think for the sake of these predictions, because you've gone for a narrow Wealdstone win, I'm going to go for something similar to what happened at the New Lawn. And I see a rousing finish from Wealdstone. I see them going down the hill and grabbing something late on. I see, I don't mean to be clairvoyant, but I see Jack Cook being involved in that. And I think Wealdstone are going to get something late on, whether it's a late equaliser 1-1 or a late winner, I don't know. But I don't want to predict the same as you. So I'm going to say Wealdstone 1, Forest Green 1.
And yeah, that's a fair summarisation of what that game could be. It's I think with what Wealdstone needs to do is not go down early, not to let a goal in. They've let goals in and they sort of capitulate. Even at Aldershot, when we were playing them at home the other week, Rob, you'll agree, they hung in at half time and Aldershot came out, scored two in like 3 or 4 minutes, and it killed the game, and they went on to win 3-0. So I think from Wealdstone's perspective, any team that are down there a little bit fragile, you've got to hang in the game as long as you can. If you can go 1-0 up like we did against Boston, you've got something to hold on to. If you start going 1-0 down, 2-0 down, it's a long evening. So yeah, I think if they can hang in the game, they've got the quality with Reed and Walker up top. They've got Carriole on the wings. There's some quality in that Wealdstone squad. It just depends, how they turn up and how they play. So yeah, a tough game, but I think a winnable one. And I think you're right. Wealdstone will get something out of it for sure. So the last game we've got to.
Yeah. No, just going to add one little point on Wealdstone. It was 3-1, wasn't it, the Aldershot game? And I thought Wealdstone were by far the more impressive team in the first half of that game. And Aldershot did what they've done a number of times lately, staying in the game, as they say. What seemed a bit, I think Wealdstone, they took the lead in that first half. They led 1-0 at half time, and it was almost like they came out like, right, we've got something we've got to hang on to here. Aldershot are coming down the slope, and there was a little bit of that mentality about it, I think, for me. So it's interesting that you say, you don't want to go behind, etc. But I don't think on that day you particularly played well from being 1-0 up at half time. I think it was too passive in the second half. But yeah, every game's different, isn't it? And Forest Green have obviously got players that can really hurt you, particularly if they're catching you on the transition. But yeah, we'll stick with my prediction for 1-1. And we've got one more game left, you say?
We have, yeah. We've got Eastleigh are playing Halifax. So I think up until recently, Eastleigh were looking at knocking on the door of the playoffs. They have dropped off. They haven't won in 5. As you can see there, they've only picked up a couple of draws. So they right at the wrong time. They've lost a little bit of form, whereas Halifax are in 5th place, couple of 3 points above or 4 points above 8th. And I think Halifax, again, not in great form, have got to be wanting to go into this game and not losing. That's what I've sort of looked at and thought, well, Eastleigh are a really difficult team to predict, Rob, aren't they? They fly under the radar. They've got, they don't have a huge fan base. They don't have any, any standout players apart from maybe Paul McCullum. they're just consistently inconsistent, Eastleigh, and they have been for the last couple of years, and really, really difficult team to sort of judge. And I mean, Halifax have constantly sort of almost felt like they're punching above their weight a little bit at that top end. They're doing a great job in terms of what they do on a year by year basis. And I think Halifax, we've said it a couple of times tonight, if you're not going to win, don't lose. And I think they're going to nick a draw at Eastleigh and try and stay in that fold for a playoff place.
And what score are you going for with the draw?
It's going to be a 1-1 draw, on that one.
Okay, I'm glad to say that we're going to have a different prediction on this one. Now, Eastleigh, I would say prior to the run of games that we're looking at here on the screen in front of us, where they haven't won in 5, they were on the edge of it, like Southend are on the edge of it now. They had a decent enough run, and they got up to 8th place. Certainly, there might have been a couple of 3 points off, but they got up to 8th place. And they needed to. And I say, I don't know if these are controversial comments or not, but they're what I firmly believe. There's a pattern with Eastleigh Football Club, and it's this. Some teams have had a right good go some seasons with a budget to try and get out of this league. I think Eastleigh have been well backed on countless seasons now, and under consecutive managers have actually only made, if I remember right, the playoffs once, that time when they went and won away on penalties against Wrexham. For how well they've been backed, and yeah, that may have dissipated a bit in the middle of that run. I think when Strevens was left in charge and Stuart Donald left to go to Sunderland, I think maybe they weren't quite as well backed, but he's been back there now for a year or two more. And I think I've no axe to grind here. I didn't know the guy. In fact, I've still never interviewed the guy. He's one of the few managers I've not spoken to in Kelvin Davis. I know he sat a few yards in front of me in that Wealdstone v Aldershot game the other week. He was there watching. But I think his remit with Eastleigh is to finish in the playoffs this season, and they're not on track to do so, and I don't think they will. And so I don't know what the contractual situation are, but it wouldn't surprise me if Eastleigh make a change in the summer, because I think he's been backed well enough to get Eastleigh in the playoffs, and it looks like they're not going to make it. So, yeah, they might completely, and Luke might not appreciate me saying all this now, because his team, Halifax, have got to go there this week, and they may bounce back to form, but I don't see it. I think it's a perfect Chris Millington away day performance here. Goes there, keeps a clean sheet, and nicks it with a goal. So Eastleigh 0, Halifax 1.
Yeah, I don't. You're right. It's not going to be a high scoring game. I mean, in terms of Eastleigh, Rob, whilst we've got you on the pod, I get a feeling that they're going to have to change the way that they recruit, who they recruit. They seem to go for experience, age. There's not a massive amount of youth in there. Are they going to have to change the dynamic of their squad to see whether they can push on to that next level? Helping with the bit of experience and quality that they do have.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? I mean, Maguire's got undoubted quality, but has he been the player this season that he was last? Quigley is a former top scorer and player of the year in this division, but has he ever consistently looked like that player at Eastleigh? McCallum has obviously had his injury issues, hasn't he, this year? When he's in that team, and I was predicting Eastleigh games, it was a nightmare. I'll tell you why. Because I think they are the team that when McCallum's playing, they can be in good form or bad form. It won't matter. He can go and win them a game on his own. So I don't quite know what it is. And this isn't a dig at all at Kelvin Davies, because he's at least the third manager to go in there and be well back with a decent budget and not be able to get Eastleigh into the playoffs, So it's a bit of an enigma. I don't fully understand it. All I can do is say that I've looked on from the outside, looking in, and rarely have I been particularly excited or impressed by Eastleigh, and they are 11th, and some supporters might say, with the size of club that they are, that's more than adequate. But I don't think it's good enough compared to how they've been backed budget wise. So yeah, that's my feeling on it. And I think this is the ideal game for Halifax to bounce back. And look, just scroll down that table a little bit. What are they on? 63 points, Halifax. So they've got currently a 4-point cushion in those playoffs. I don't think they need outstanding form to hold on to their place over their final 6 games. I think probably a win and 3 draws give them another 6 points. It will take them to 69, and it will probably just about be enough. Luke will tell you, of course, they've had, they've lost key players, of course, in Sam Johnson and at least one of their reliable centre backs as well. But I think they probably will get across the line. I think Gateshead are the most prone to dropping out of those playoff positions, and Southend and Altrincham best placed to try and nick it off them.
No, I agree. It's a good next 4 weeks of the season to get to sort of digest and almost at 4:45 on a Saturday, you're looking and you're thinking, at 3:30 teams are where they are, and then at 4:45 they're somewhere else, and at 4:45 they're somewhere else. It's a hugely unpredictable league, and I know, being a Wealdstone fan, there's fans are constantly on Flash Score looking at the in scores and where they're sitting, but and they'll be doing that at the top end of the table as well. So, Rob, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for your appearance this evening as a late call. I know Luke will very much appreciate that. I'll just very quickly put up the fact that Rob is predicting for Luke, who is 10 points clear of myself at this present time. I am running out of games. I have got Trevor's Barnett shirt that's washed and ready to go to have to wear, in terms of the forfeit. But still a long way to go. But I'm starting to slip away a little bit like Eastleigh have. So I'm starting to worry a little bit here that, especially if Rob has a stellar week on behalf of Luke this time round. But yes, there's the predictions. They're tough ones to call. It's a great league to call on. I thoroughly enjoy it. I know, Rob, you do. We talk about this on a regular basis. So, and you guys that have listened, and watched, thank you very much. If you want to like and subscribe and join the channel and help Luke along his way, that would be much appreciated as well. It'd be great to see as many of you return and get his subscriptions up as well. But that just leaves us to say thanks once again, Rob. Good luck on Saturday against Woking. Woking fans, enjoy your trip to the Rec. Good luck to Rochdale up there, who are playing Spennymoor, and obviously good luck to any Spennymoor fans who make that trip to Rochdale and have a dream of visiting Wembley. And for all those teams that are fighting for relegation or going for promotion, enjoy your Saturdays. And we will be back next Thursday to digest what's happened today and a couple of midweek results. But until then, it's goodbye for now.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks for having me on.